All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of A Little Bit of Everything. Um, it's it's been a good day for me. Um, Not too eventful considering it is Valentine's Day. I mean, I volunteered at a food bank this morning, and after that, I went and dug in the dirt on my property for a few hours, and then came home and had dinner. So, yeah, I'm not the person to come to for Valentine's Day things, but I don't know if I want to get into it. Um, I noticed there are people waiting for me in the chat, which is something that I'm not used to. So that kind of takes priority over any kind of opening monologue that I was going to give. So Hudat has put a whole bunch of chats in here, and he says, I have a ton of questions for Timothy. So are your questions revolving around the LPs and the farms? Because I see you've got a lot of chats in here regarding this subject. Okay. Well, let me go back here. Regarding the farms, the LP pools, right now, personally, I am involved in several. I have assets in 5 different pairs. And what I do is I harvest all of the ink token once a week or whenever I get around to it. And I take all of that incentive token and I concentrate it on the Pulse X ink pair. And the reason that I'm doing that is because my PulseX isn't doing anything besides what I have it doing in the farm. So I participate in the PulseX ink farm, and I participate in the PulseX farm. Now, dollar-wise, I have more in the PulseX pair. So the amount of ink I'm earning from that is pretty good, even though it's a smaller APY. But like I said, all of the ink that I earn, I focus that on the PulseX ink pair. And I'm going to continue to do that until I run out of PulseX tokens to put in the farm. Once I get to that point, then I'll take inventory on where I am and see where I want to go from there. And the reason I'm focusing on that pair rather than the Pulse ink pair, even though I am participating in that pair also, I'm not adding to that pair because I've already got Pulse spread out through that pair, the Pulse Hex pair, and the PulseX pair. So yeah, the ink pairs, the 2 ink pairs have the highest percentage of APY right now. So if anybody would take an interest in doing something in LPing in the farm, then personally I would add to those pairs. Now, granted, if you're not already earning ink from another pair, then you have to buy ink to contribute to that pair. So that's a matter of the individual having to take a look at their own portfolio to see mathematically, what do they need to add in order to get some kind of return. Like, for example, the last person that I onboarded into Hex, I told them, create your stake with the amount of Hex based on what you believe the value of that Hex is going to be when that stake ends. So I would say the same thing in relationship to the incentive token, um, because, you know, it says here, when the coins inside the pool 10 or 20x the impact of yield we get on our ink. If we got 30K in a pool today, someday it makes to be 300K. Well, as I've said on a previous stream, my present goal with my ink earnings is, right now, as far as my yield bearing assets that Go Pulse is tracking, my incentive token is number 3, just behind Hex and eHex. My incentive token yield is number 3. And my goal in regards to that is to have my incentive token daily yield be enough to pay for my cost of living. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to rely on ink to pay for my cost of living. It's just that's a goal that I personally have right now. So, yeah, if a person's in a position to participate in the farm, then, I would do that personally because, like I said, ink is my 3rd favorite coin in the entire ecosystem. So I'm a big fan of it, and anything that I can do to promote it or motivate people to, at least examine it. I don't know where everybody's finances are, so I can't say. Awesome. That is farm it till you make it and stake it till you make it. I like that. You just gave me right now, you just gave me an idea. I've been considering editing the wrap on my car. I want to redo the front bumper area, and the wheel wells, because right now there's just individual stickers on those parts of the car. They're not wrapped. And I want to get them wrapped. And I wasn't really sure how I wanted that laid out. But the whole idea of farming it till you make it is something that I may put on the front of the car, because I already have stake it till you make it on the back of the car. So I may do a little play on the word farm, instead of farm it till you make it, like, farm it until you arm it or something like that, and have like ink logos on the front of the car. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind. So thank you for saying that, because you just gave me an idea. So nice. Very nice. So yeah, today's been a good day. I was a little tired earlier because I got up at like 5:30 to go work at this food bank, and I didn't think I'd have the energy to go move dirt on my property today, but I did, and it actually invigorated me quite a bit and helped get me, in the mood for wanting to stream this evening. And I was thinking about, the whole fact that it's Valentine's Day, and I saw something on Twitter that was really cute that I want to share real quick before talking about anything else. Let's see. Okay. No. Wow. This person has a lot of fake accounts. Shucks. I'm not remembering how to spell this person's. Oh man. Anyway, so with this whole thing with Valentine's Day, while I was working out on my land, it rained all last week. So it was muddy, and even today, the ground is still moist. And I thought about that because in the past couple months, for some reason, several different women online have expressed a problem that they have with guys using the word moist. And I don't get it because it's just an adjective that is used to describe an object that contains a certain degree of water. And some has suggested that it has something to do with the OI sound, that oi kind of triggers something in the female brain. I don't know for sure. At first I thought, well, maybe, people are imagining, some kind of perverted imagery, and using that word triggers their imagination in a bad way that they don't appreciate. I don't know. But all I can suggest is if you have a problem with that word, then I highly recommend that you not go on vacation to London. Because as Red Squirrel addresses me when he comes into the chat, in England, when people want your attention, they don't say hey or yo, they say oi. So if you have a problem with the word moist, you probably aren't going to enjoy, having people in England wanting to greet you. Who that says, or Oregon. Oh, is that a thing in Oregon? I know that people in Oregon, they have a tendency to put an R. They pronounce an R when they say wash. They call it wash. And I'm like, where's the R coming from? It's heavy wet. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Being in the Northwest, it rains up there quite a bit. So, yeah, that's something that I was thinking about today. But as I was looking over dinner, or as I was eating dinner, I came across this tweet from Hexalina Pulsalot. And it's a video, it's a Valentine's Day video, and it zooms in on this cat sitting at a table. It's like a Valentine's Day dinner. And it's actually a really cute, well-made video. I was trying to pull it up here, but I don't remember how her handle is spelled. And when I put it in the search bar, there's like 15 different fake accounts that come up. So, here it is. Here's her account. So let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, here it is. This is cute. I want to play this real quick just because it's Valentine's Day. Why not? I'll get into the mood. So yeah. I have enough of the Valentine's Day spirit that I'll at least play a sentimental cat video. At least I don't sound like totally like the Ebenezer Scrooge of Valentine's Day. But I like moist brownies, gooey. Yeah, same here. It's like, it even says it on the box if you get a Betty Crocker brownie mix. It says like up in the corner, moist mixture. So, yeah. Another thing I was thinking about while throwing dirt around was the fact that about a week or so ago, the God whale staked like 3.5 billion hex for 45 days. And he got like 100,000 T-shares for doing that. And on my way home, I was thinking, what would I do if I were in his shoes, with a stake like that? And the thing that came to me was when that stake expires, I would take all of that yield, maybe round it up to like the next million, and stake all of that yield for 15 years and then restake that 3 billion hex for another 45 days. Because by doing that, not only would you be, creating a killer staking ladder, but you would also be driving the share price up a lot. I mean, I'm curious to see what the new share price is going to be when that stake expires. I think it's going to put a dent in it pretty good. And as I showed in Crypty Girl's video the other day, that she shows in that the price of shares 2 years ago was 20,000 hex per T share. The following year, it was 25. That's a 5,000 hex jump. And now 1 year later, it's 32, which is a 7,000 hex jump. And, if the God whale keeps doing, this giant stake every 45 days, we can easily see like a 10,000 hex jump in the price of shares by this time next year. I mean, that's a very real possibility. So I've tweeted before that I personally believe that the time of cheap T-shares needs to be over, because people like expensive things. You'll see a much longer line outside of the Louis Vuitton store than you'll see outside of any Nike store in the world. It's because people like expensive things, even if they can't afford them. They're captivated by it. And I feel that way about T-shares. T-shares are more scarce than Bitcoin. So therefore, a T-share should cost as much as a Bitcoin, because the T-share brings more to the table than what Bitcoin does. And yeah, who that's like, I remember when it was 10,000 hex per T-share. So do I. That was the opening price day one for T-shares was 10,000 hex. And I also remember that the payout per T-share for like the first month of hex wasn't even 1 hex per T-share. It was a fraction of a hex. And, even with that, the fact was hex worked and I was getting paid to sleep, even if it was just pennies on day one. It still worked. And I'm like, you know what? I will keep working this until my payout per T-share every day is more than my paycheck every day. And, one thing led to another, and here we are. And it happened. And, that was my big goal when I first got into Hex, was to get paid enough to sleep that I don't have to sell my time in order to live. And of course, because the price appreciated as much as it did, that allowed me to get a couple of big ticket items. And, the rest is basically history. Hey, MT Coiner stopped in. Welcome. Good to see you. He says, I'm pretty sure I made my first 10-year stake on day 3 of the AA. It was small, but it was a crazy feeling to even stake a small amount out that long. I know. And I kind of went through the same thing. Um, to be honest, my first 12 stakes were for the first 12 months of the new year. And then my next 12 stakes were the 12 months of 2021. And then it was sometime after that I started doing 10 and 15-year stakes. Now, mind you, those 12 stakes, or actually those 24 stakes, were made like in the first day or two, because I had no idea, where the price was going to go or what it was going to be. So my first several stakes were actually relatively small. As a matter of fact, I didn't, for the first year, all of my stakes that came out, I just accumulated all that hex liquid in my wallet. And then at the end of the next year, I just staked that as one gigantic stake, like 15 years in the future, because it started to become clear to me as far as, what the price was doing. I was getting how the system worked, basically. But I can relate. It was there was a certain trepidation about staking long term, in the first couple of days, only because it seemed like it was too good to be true when Hex actually launched. Like, I remember when Richard live streamed when it launched, and Richard's usually a pretty outspoken guy, but I remember in that stream he was really quiet. Like, it's almost like he himself was almost, having to pinch himself, like, is this actually happening? Has this really launched? And it really works. So, but yeah. And then after staking, a couple of long-term stakes, next thing you know, I'm like staking a 5-5-5-5 stake like every other day. I got like I don't know, 20, 25 or more 5-5-5-5 stakes. So yeah. He says, I can't remember for sure, but I think the first day you could stake was on day 2 of the AA. I may have staked on day 2. I'd have to open up some wallets and look. Yeah, I don't remember the specifics. The only thing I know for sure was I did listen to Richard, and I did not over FOMO on day 1 into the adoption amplifier. I only put 1 ETH into the adoption amplifier on day 1, which wasn't that much money because ETH back then was like $100. It wasn't a big deal. So I just told myself, it's like, this thing's going to be going for another year. So, set some of that ETH aside and spread it out over the course of the year, which I did. So, and he also says here, I almost never open my wallets anymore. I'm the epitome of stake and chill. I've been that way for the past 2 weeks when my stake stopped showing up on the GoPulse portfolio. I'm too lazy to look them up on any other UI. So I just stopped looking at my wallet for a while. I mean, maybe once a day I'll look at my portfolio, maybe. And that's only if I'm like not occupied doing something else. One of the interesting things that is a blessing in disguise is that I don't get hardly any cell service on my lot where I'm building my house. So I can't check Twitter during the day. I'll get notifications, but if I open up the app, it doesn't populate. I can barely do text messaging, and I kind of have to walk around to find a spot to receive phone calls. So that's kind of a blessing in disguise, because I can't be distracted looking at charts and wallets when I really want to, get on with my development. So Hex Monkey, my dear friend and past recipient of the Hexagon of the Day Award, says, help spread the word about Tim B's streams. Tweet it out. I want to see a sub count moon in 2024. That is the most encouraging thing anybody has said yet on my live streams. So thank you very much for that promotion in that regard. You know, I'm happy to see anybody, you know, on here at all, so that I don't have to just talk to the empty space. So, yeah, 2 to 3 people is enough of a moon count to make me happy. But yeah, thank you, everyone. I FOMO'd on day one, and I'm not ashamed of it. Well, eventually you did earn back the dollar value of, you know, whatever you did put in on day one. So, you know, it's okay. I won't tell anybody that you FOMO'd on day one. I know at least one other person that FOMO'd on day one. I won't dox him. Laziness is your best friend in crypto if you remember to do the small important things when it counts. Yeah, that is definitely advice. If you don't know what to do in crypto, the best thing to do is nothing. Don't do anything. I actually had an onboard, was like, this person contacted me and they're like, you know, I put all this money in and now I don't see it anywhere. And I'm like, that's because you staked it. Your wallet's not going to show your money because your money's not in your wallet. It's in the Hex contract. You'll see it when your stake ends, and it'll be put back in your wallet. And this person hit the emergency end stake button and took a picture of their screen. And I'm like, no, don't press that button. Cancel. And I'm just like, oh, stress hormone overload, big time. Yeah, don't do anything. If you don't know what you're doing, do nothing. We've swelled to 7 viewers. Yes. Yeah, remember those days of $98 ETH in AA? Oh, wow. It's amazing ETH being that cheap compared to now. I mean, you know, we're looking at like over 20x compared to that. What can Pulse do in comparison to what ETH has done since the days of the AA? Pulse is a better product, better platform, better features, better throughput, just better everything. So, you know, I think Pulse deserves to see similar gains. Okay, you doxed yourself, Hex Monkey. I was trying to be discreet when I said I knew somebody else who FOMO'd on day one. The things that we can look back and laugh on. Let's see. Not gonna lie, I'd love to go back to an $85 ETH if I can go back with what I know now. Yeah, I'm sure most of us would. I think most of us, if we can go back and start over on day one of Hex, that we would do things a lot differently. And hang on. My computer dings when my phone rings. Excuse me for a second. I'm going to text this person and tell them I'm occupied. All right. Anyway, stake it till you make it, or stake it, yeah, till you make it to 150 million hex because of the 10% bonus. Bigger pays better. That 10% is a huge deal. Yeah. Oh, wow. 150 million hex. You know, I thought staking, 10 million hex was a big deal, because that's one of my largest stakes. And I've seen people, like, just throw away 150 million hex, just dump it, and it's like, man, what are these people thinking? But anyway, Hex Monkey wasn't around day 30 that it picked back up and had some crazy good rates. I feel like I won really hard on a couple of those lobbies. Yeah. Oh, I remember with the AA. Oh, this got a little bit frustrating, because there was at least a couple of times where, I would wait till like the last minute before the day ticks over to try to snipe to get the biggest uh, contribution for the payout of the AA. And somebody at the last second would just put in like 5 ETH, 10 ETH, or something like that. And I just gave up after a while. I'm just like, I'm just going to put in whatever I'm going to put in and leave it at that. Whale games, I tell you. Hex Kong, hey bros. Hello there, Hex Kong. Thank you for stopping in. Hex Kong was here on the very first day, and that was such an encouragement to me, because Hex Kong is somebody who is definitely going to be, who is on the list of people who will eventually receive the Hexagon of the Day award. Because I first met Hex Kong in Orlando at the second Hex meetup. And as a matter of fact, he paid for my dinner at that French restaurant. And that means a lot to me, because there's a certain element of class when a person is willing to pay for another person's meal. And I made a big deal, because I was there when Hexologist first started streaming. And I remember encouraging him with his efforts. And I remember telling him that, when we're free and we're all independently wealthy, I said, I want to meet up with you and I want to buy you dinner, just as a way of saying thank you for what you've done. So, and I'm not talking about pricing or fancy things like that. It's the thought that counts. And so Hex Kong, it's like, you're always going to be one of my probably top 10 hexagons. And, I hope your wife's doing well. Today's Valentine's Day. And I hope it's good for you. And I hope you're both happy and all is going well. And he says, hope we can make it out again for another meetup. Well, I just realized you're back east. And the last time when I was back in Pennsylvania last summer, I made a trip to New York to go visit somebody. And it totally spaced my mind that you're in that area. So I plan on making a trip later this year, because I have an appointment in Washington, D.C. in May on Memorial Day weekend. So depending on what life looks like, I plan on spending a considerable amount of time back there around that time. And if I do, I'll definitely get a hold of you, and it would be awesome for us to meet up. Maybe we can, contact a couple other New Yorkers and, get a whole crew together. That would rock. Corey Geary, my friend, it's so good to see you. Thank you for stopping in. I hope you're well. I hope you and your wife are having a good Valentine's Day. I hope your daughter is permitting you two to just enjoy one another's company and not demanding it all for herself. uh, yeah, it's really great. Human hex trafficker. Wow. Long time no see. He has come to some of my Arizona meetups that I've hosted here. I do want to get back into doing meetups again. I still have my account with Meetup, and I stopped doing them last year because I got too involved with my my land developing project. So after visiting with my accountant last Friday and telling her about the meetups, she was telling me that, yeah, that can be considered part of your write-off for your LLC if you're basically educating the people that show up. So yeah, it's cool. I want to get back into that again. And if I do, or when I do, I should say, I'll let you know because I'd love to, hang out with you some more. MT Coiner back again says, I remember now, I FOMO'd on day one. I then participated in the AA every day for 7 days. Then I put in a small amount every day for 60 days. I was trying to be exposed without being dumb about it. I pretty much did the same thing because I wanted to make my ETH, stretch it out. Like for the first week, I put in like 1 ETH per day. And then the next week, I put in a half of an ETH per day. And then the next week, I put in a quarter of an ETH per day. And then it just kind of leveled out around that amount that I did every day because it was satisfying to participate every day rather than put in, 5 ETH at the end of the week or whatever. It was just more fun pushing buttons and putting in small amounts every day. And then when the gas fees got to like $20, I just stopped doing that every day because it just didn't seem cost worthy. It's almost like $20 in ETH gas fees would almost be a blessing in disguise now compared to then. Because when Hex first launched on ETH, gas fees were like a penny. It was like Pulse Chain. It was nothing. And then suddenly it went from 1 penny to 5 pennies to 10 pennies to $20. And it was like, you got to be kidding me. But anyway, one thing I will say, though, is when I got my $1,200 stimulus check, I staked that for 5,555 days in one big chunk. And that's probably one of the smartest decisions I made in my life. Yeah. Good old days at the AA. Hex Kong is like, I put a nice chunk in on day one just to show support, expecting a bad rate, and then the DCA mode began. Yeah. I can see that. Hexagon Greenhorn, good evening, Hexicans. Good to see you, Tim. Hope all is well, brother. Thank you. It's good to see you too again, Mr. Greenhorn. And yes, I am doing very well. As I've already said earlier, I volunteered at the food bank this morning, then worked on my land this afternoon, and then had dinner and then went online. For anybody out there who is considering streaming or is streaming, don't eat a meal right before you go online. Or you're going to make a fool of yourself by hiccuping and burping while you're on stream, like I've been doing the last 2 nights. But yeah, all is very well. Um, I've been wishing people a happy Valentine's Day since that's what today is. And I had a little monologue earlier about the fact that so many women I've noticed recently have been making a big deal about guys using the word moist in a sentence. And I was trying to dissect what the problem was there. But yeah, it was just something we were talking about earlier. uh, yep. $1,000 of my stimmy went straight into crypto, all as well. Come to think of it. Yeah. Yep. Uh, that is going to be a big reward for those of us who did that. As a matter of fact, there was a Twitter account. I haven't seen it in a while, but there was a Twitter account that would periodically post about that stimulus check. It said that if you, you know, deposited your check, it would be worth so much today. And if you staked it for the maximum yield, you would also earn this much by now. So it was a statistic um, that was posted about the stimulus checks. If I can remember that Twitter account, I'd contact that person, encourage them to get back into it. Marcavelli has got the 3 potatoes. I don't know if there's a message behind that or if what, but it's good to see you. Marcavelli, did we ever meet in person? Were you at Vegas for any of Maddie's meetups? I don't remember meeting you at the very first one in 2021. And I met so many people in 2022 that I don't remember everyone. But I know I've talked to you online. You've been around for a long time. But yeah, I don't know if we've ever met. I staked the hex from the pizza purchase for 10 years. Nice. Nice. 3 potatoes. Oh, nice. Come to think of it, I need to contact Hexologist and let him know personally that I'm streaming. I really haven't done anything to shill my own channel except to just put an announcement on Twitter right before I go on each day. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, Hexo and I go all the way back to day one. And, we've spoken in private about, just the mutual admiration that we have for one another. And, even his wife told me one time that, he's very fond of me. So, yeah, Hexo's another one of my top 10 Hexkins and always will be. Andre says, hi, Tim. Hex and Pulse Chain and Pulse Bitcoin are long-term play for me. And yep, they are for me too. I am looking forward to see what this next halving looks like. That's going to be really cool. So now that I'm caught up on the chat, I want to take a moment to recognize the Hexakin of the day. This is something I do every day. I present what I call the Hexakin of the Day Award. And I already know who I'm giving the award to before I even start streaming. So it's not like this is something that I just make up on the spot to just patronize somebody in the chat. It usually comes to me like right after I finish one stream. I think about it until a name comes to me as somebody that I want to recognize for their contribution for what they do for the Hex community. And I tend to give this award to somebody who doesn't do much besides tweet. usually people who don't make content, who are not streamers or very active in other people's streams, people who don't get interviewed hardly at all. These are the people that I want to recognize for their contribution to the hex space, because the fact of the matter is all stakers count. Everybody who participates in the system counts. And there are people that, I either know about them, or I've met them, or I've just noticed, their consistency in their contributions. So the person that I'm going to present with the Hexagon of the Day award today is somebody that I met on Twitter at the beginning of Hex. We just started talking, and it turns out he's from the Northeast, like me. And we eventually met at the first meetup in Vegas. This was during the lockdown, so it was kind of a low-key event. It wasn't a conference per se. It was just a large-scale meetup. And this person was there, and I hardly recognized him in person, but he was wearing a baseball jersey, because this person is really into supporting baseball leagues. I don't know if they're minor leagues or if they're just with different businesses, or if there are little leagues. I don't know the extent of his involvement, but he's really into supporting baseball teams, and he provides them with uniforms that have Hex logos and banners advertising Hex. And he just does a lot on the local level where he lives to promote Hex. And when we met in Vegas, I remember him and I were sitting at a table at this speakeasy. It was me, him, and another guy named Lee. And we were just having a great time. Like, we really just hit it off. And you really are building a rapport with somebody when you're sitting at a table together and they show you their what was the Staker app, the now defunct Staker phone app. When somebody shows you their Staker app at the dinner table, they either like you, or they trust you, or they respect you. And this person showed me his wallet. And I'm not going to dox his wallet, but suffice it to say, it was bigger than mine. I was like, whoa. And it's always been a goal of mine to recognize people who have a bigger, who are higher up in their league than I am. There's the people that I want to earn their respect. They're the people that I would like to earn a follow from and earn their attention. So the fact that, this person and I have this connection and this relationship is very meaningful to me personally, apart from his contribution to the entire Richard Heart ecosystem and the Hex community. So with that, let me pull up his Twitter profile and present him with the Hexagon of the Day award. And it is going to a man who goes by the name of Lazar. And as I said, he's very active in supporting baseball teams. And you can tell that from his banner on his Twitter profile. So congratulations to Mr. Lazar for winning the Hexagon of the Day award. I suppose it would be somewhat responsible on my part to actually tell him that he got this award, since I consider him such a friend. But yeah, like I said, my goal is to earn attention and earn follows rather than ask for them. So yeah, if you don't know who Lazar is, I highly recommend that you get to know him, that you follow his Twitter account, that you pay attention to what he posts, because he's just an overall great guy. And it's like he's one of those people that it's hard to dislike. So anyway, I got another chat here. I remember you dug your septic tank by hand. Was very impressed when you did it. Did you ever burn that pile of brush you had on your land? You said you were going to have a hex party and bonfire it up. Yes, I did burn it, but unfortunately, the county would not allow me to burn it in one giant pile. I talked to the local fire department, and you have to go on to their website and you have to apply for a burn permit. And their website tells you the criteria based on the weather, where your property is located, and what you're burning. They tell you how big of a pile you're allowed to have and how you have to burn it. So what I ended up having to do is I had to build a 4 foot by 4 foot square with rocks. I just made a pile of rocks in the shape of a square, and I could only burn 4 feet at a time, and the pile couldn't be more than 4 feet high. So I did burn it, but I didn't publish it because it kind of ruined the whole idea of having a bonfire. It was more like a brush fire. I should have made a video of the fire chief's face when I first pulled up into the parking lot of the fire department and told him what I wanted to do. I told him, I have this property right up on top of this mesa, and I have this pile of brush that's like 20 feet long and 15 feet wide, and I want to light it all on fire. And he just looked at me in horror. He's like, no, you can't burn that much at one time. He's like, just no. And I'm just laughing at him because the dude looked like he was ready to have a heart attack because he took me like totally serious. And but yeah, that's that. The fact of the matter is I do have another pile that I want to burn, but again, I only will be able to do it in small pieces. Marcavelli is like, your burn permit costs $420. Actually, in Arizona, it's free. So we can fire it up. No cost at all. And actually, if you drive down Route 260 between Cottonwood and Camp Verde in the summertime, you don't even have to fire it up. You could just park along the road outside of the dispensary where they grow the stuff, and you can get a contact high just parking along the side of the road and breathing. Oh, man. So yeah. That's that. Another element that I want to add as a talking point on these live streams is a book review. And because I have a very large collection of books that I've read over the course of my life. And I figure, why not take the time to share a little bit about one that I have read. So I want to see if there's a website that lists this particular book. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Give me a second here. Okay, here we go. So anyway, I don't know How many of you watching are old enough to remember the bringing down of the Berlin Wall in 1989? Or how many of you are aware of why the Berlin Wall was constructed in the first place? Or if any of you have ever heard the word perestroika. If you haven't, the Berlin Wall was constructed because in 1917, the nation of Russia experienced a revolution in which the nature of the government shifted. It had been a monarchy for, well over 1,000 years. But then a political group called the Bolsheviks led out in a revolution. They killed the entire royal family, and they started a new system of central government in Russia that we now call communism. And the leader of this revolution was a man by the name of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. And Lenin's approach as far as communism was concerned was intellectual, as far as a way of spreading it. But after he passed away, his successor was a man by the name of Joseph Stalin. And his approach was to use brute force. And he's one of the most brutal people as far as like dictators that ever lived. I mean, the guy just was responsible for the death of millions of people in what would become the Soviet Union. Because as communism, got seated in Russia, the Russian government, the country of Russia, started annexing other territories in Eastern Europe that would create this entity called the Soviet Union. And at the height of its power, the Soviet Union actually occupied 11 time zones. That's how big land scale this entity was. This government that governed Russia and Eastern Europe and started to spread into other countries outside of the Asian continent. And eventually it started to fail. It started to unravel. And Ronald Reagan, in conjunction with Pope John Paul II, were greatly involved in trying to cause this unraveling, because, during the 20th century, you have three very big powers, basically competing to be the world's number one superpower. That was the United States, the Soviet Union, and the Vatican. So as the Soviet Union was beginning to collapse, it tried to restructure itself to prolong its existence. And that restructuring is where the word perestroika comes from. It's the Russian word for restructure. And the reason I'm saying all this is because this is an introduction to a book that I read in the early 2000s that I will bring up on screen here to share with you. Here it is. I read this book. This is my book review for today. It's called The Perestroika Deception, Memoranda to the Central Intelligence Agency. This was written by a man named Anatoly Golitsyn, and it's very likely that was a pseudonym. But this man came to the United States in the early 1960s and basically was approaching the Kennedy administration to warn them about the long-term goals of the Soviet Union, because basically, like any world power, the communists wanted to take over the whole world. They wanted to make the entire world, have every country's government structured after Russia's government. And that's what superpowers do. They want to, make everybody like them. So this man, Anatoly Golitsyn, he approaches the Kennedy administration, and he's trying to warn them that, this is their plan for taking over America. And as I said, Lenin, his approach to propagating communism was through the mind, through the educational system, by, enticing people to receive communism, rather than the Stalinist approach of, forcing it on people or killing them. So when the Berlin Wall came down, on the surface, it looked like communism had failed, because the Soviet Union collapsed and it was no more. And all these satellite countries started to become independent of Russia. And this ties in probably with the present conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And anyway, the point being that what this book is the point this book is making is that when the Berlin Wall came down, that wasn't to allow the West to come in and influence Russian culture and make it democratic. It was actually to allow communism to come out and to be spread on a grand scale. And if you know anything about the principles of communism, if you're familiar with something called the Communist Manifesto, which is basically, it's a list of 10 planks. It's basically the 10 commandments of communism. We pretty much have all 10 of them going full blast in this country, and we have for decades. So this book was just incredibly insightful at the time that I read it. It's a little outdated now, but it's my book of the day review, just because it was something that I just thought about recently when considering the book of the day. Just like I'm recognizing a hexagon of the day, there's a book of the day that I would like to review. So this is today's book. I may get into movie reviews in the future. To be honest, I'm not that big of a movie person. I was when I was a kid, but after, as I started to become an adult, and as the millennium ticked over, my interest in movies really started to wane quite a bit. So if I do movie reviews, they're going to be of movies that you've probably seen, a dozen times, and, it wouldn't be on anything really new. So that's just something that I'm considering as a way of adding content to the stream. But let me go back into chat here. Hexagon Greenhorn says, here too in Michigan, they just made it legal to anyone to use. So there's just a dispensary on every corner. In Arizona, I don't think we have recreational use legal yet. You need a doctor's card to get it. But, I mean, come on. Doctors are people who like money just like everybody else. And they're basically professional drug dealers anyway. So, I don't have a doctor here that I deal with in Arizona. I haven't been to a doctor since 1998, so I don't know for sure. I mean, I know a doctor personally, but it's not because I'm one of his patients. It's because I know him as a person. But it just seems like everybody here has an excuse for a card from their doctor, to buy weed. So, I'm sure if you just ask the right questions and flip out enough cash, you'll get a card. I don't smoke weed anymore, so I don't really care one way or the other. It's funny, when I was a teenager, I used to love to smoke weed. Now I hate it. I don't even like the smell of it. I don't mean to be a party pooper. I guess I'm just being old. But it's just one of those things I outgrew. That's all. What do you see the Bank X and their e-hex bag? Are they staking or are they just selling on open market? I can't read minds, but I will tell you that when I was at the the Pulse Chain Hex conference last year, was it last year or 2022? Whenever Matty had his last Hex conference, I'm pretty sure it was 2022. There was a party that was hosted by the Bank X guy that somehow I got invited to. And it was like a mansion party. It was kind of like, it was kind of like a wannabe version of Naga's mansion party. But anyway, it was hosted by the guy who runs Bank X. And I didn't know that until I got there. And I didn't know what Bank X was until he explained it to me. On the surface, it sounded like a good idea, using precious metal to back up a crypto. I'm not a big precious metals person to begin with, so I wasn't really sold on the idea. The party was actually kind of lame too. He wasn't prepared for a house full of Hexicans to show up at this party, and it was obvious. And it was kind of a catch-22 because the party was in a neighborhood, so they requested that you Uber into it and not drive as to not clog up the neighborhood. Well, people who drink beer, which was probably everybody at the party except me, because I'm a party pooper, were complaining because they didn't have any beer and they hardly had a way to get any without having to hire an Uber to take them to a liquor store. So, the guy's personality kind of came across like a typical salesman and not a crypto person. So, my point being is I wouldn't be surprised if BankX just at one point just dumps. I mean, I'd like to give the guy the benefit of the doubt that he would do something intelligent with his Hex, create a staking ladder, do something practical. But based on his personality and my experience dealing with him, I wouldn't be surprised if eHex goes to 10 cents, I wouldn't be surprised if he just market dumps the whole bag. It wouldn't shock me at all. But like I said, I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to making decisions. So I really hope he, stakes it and does something smart. Hex Monkey says, we've had Hex whales for 4 years now. Bank X is just another one. Nothing new, nothing special. Ultimately, yeah. But again, I wish the best for the guy. If I were in his shoes, knowing who the God Whale is, I would at least have respect for the guy for giving me so much Hex in the first place. And as a sign of respect, I would treat the Hex with respect and not just dump it. But like I said, I'm not a mind reader and I'm not him, so I can't say for sure what he will or will not do. So anyway, so let's see. I've done Hexagon of the Day Award. I've done a book review. I've been checking in on chat. I guess I will take a moment here to take a look at the news, and of course, when I say the news, I'm talking about my Twitter feed, because Twitter is basically where I get all of my news. I don't pay attention to the mainstream media, and most of what I consider news has to do with the crypto space. Anyway, let's see. I don't know if there's anything on here that'll be worth talking about, so bear with me for a second. Excuse me. Here's something I will share just as a way of promoting one of my top 3 favorite cryptos. I can't get enough tweets from this guy, and that is Mr. Johnny Sachs, because he's posting here, my goal in this bull run is to outperform your friend Somi's baby dolls. And he's posting a price chart of the Calm and Pulse price pair. And that chart is looking absolutely beautiful to me. And I'm not even a professional chart guy. I'm just somebody who likes Calm and likes the fact that it's going up in price, and like the fact that it's linked to the T-share. And I like the fact that the coupon rate is currently at 10%. So bravo to Johnny. I believe he's going to be a guest on a live stream tomorrow with Access Live and somebody else to do a very deep dive into the whole secret weapon. So if you are not aware of the secret weapon, I recommend that you either watch Johnny's video that he posted on his YouTube channel, or look for this live stream that he's going to be on tomorrow. But yeah, the secret weapon, the Hexcom fusion, I am definitely going to do something Calm related when whenever I get around to editing the front of my car with the wrap. I'm going to have ink and Calm represented on my car somewhere or somehow. You just gotta, get around to it. Seems like there's a lot of things that I'm trying to get around to that are being a little bit of a challenge because of my house building project. And, that's priority number 1, that over everything else right now. So let me see if there's anything else on here that is worth sharing and commenting on. Let's see. Let's see. Here is a post that is addressing my 3rd favorite crypto. So that in itself will warrant it to be newsworthy and worth sharing and possibly commenting on with everybody here. This is from my dear friend, Mr. Gary Woods. Y'all do realize that Incentive is the only Richard Heart token that wasn't airdropped or forked, right? I mean, some get upset over BankX, Rackham, free airdrops, or sacrifice tokens being sold, but they don't see the only one always had to be market bought. Incentive is awarded for good behavior for the ecosystem. Minnows benefit, sure, but I think the goal has always been to incentivize whales with enough cash flow to dampen volatility. Allowing liquidity to build is the most challenging part of any market launch. Your thoughts? Gary, I couldn't have said it any better. This is exactly the point that I've been getting at from the beginning in relationship to the Incentive token. Providing people with a gratuity for providing a service to the ecosystem by providing stability to prices of trading pairs is a brilliant proposition. And that's why I love the Incentive token. And, people say, well, anybody who says, well, it's just a dump token, tell me a token that isn't a dump token. If it's got a price, it's a dump token. It's all a matter of how you choose to relate to whatever asset you have. And, I don't want to risk repeating myself or going off on a rant, but it's like the incentive token is a brilliant invention. Richard Hart is not stupid. The fact that he's, has said that he thinks that it's like the least interesting asset or whatever, however he worded that, to me, that's a buy signal, not a sell signal. Richard doesn't build stupid and worthless things. So anyway, thank you to Gary for sharing that with us. Let me see if there's anything else on here that is worth commenting on. Let's see. Nothing yet. I don't want to risk creating dead space. Here's an interesting announcement surrounding my number one favorite cryptocurrency that I will share with you. And this is from a centralized exchange called BitGet, which I've never heard of before. But apparently they bought a bag of Hex that they are making available. And normally I wouldn't promote or talk about a centralized exchange, but the fact is, however they got their Hex, it wasn't given to them for free by Richard. So, it's a free market. And if somebody owns a centralized exchange and they want to buy Hex and turn around and resell it, good on them. I wonder if anybody out there remembers the name of the very first exchange that listed Hex, or at least the Hex price chart. When Hex first launched, there was this no-name exchange. I remember the name, but I'm just putting it out there to see if anybody who's watching, if they can remember the name of that first exchange that listed Hex, that we all went to for price charts every day. And I remember when Hex was trading it, one day it was worth a Satoshi. And then the next day, it was worth 2 Satoshis. We doubled our bags. And then eventually Hex was trading for less than 1 Satoshi. And I remember people like Tone Vase were just gloating about how terrible Hex was because it wasn't even worth 1 Satoshi. Those were the days. Nobody's submitting a guess. So either you're not paying attention, you don't know, or you don't care. That's okay. I've been going on here for over an hour anyway, so I wouldn't pay attention to me that long either. The name of the exchange was called BuyDesk, and it's B-I, not B-U-Y. Oh, who that? Yeah, who that's like, yeah, it starts with a B. Yeah, it was BuyDesk. Marcavelli says Uniswap. Not really. We made Uniswap popular. Uniswap was the first DEX that we were able to trade Hex on. It wasn't the first exchange to show a price chart. The first price chart was on BuyDesk, not Uniswap. But Uniswap was the first DEX, and we made Uniswap popular. So in that regard, give a shout out to Uniswap with their duct tape on, Uni token that I turned around and swapped for ETH to put into the adoption amplifier like soon as I got it, because I was, reasoning in my mind, well, I can hold on to this bag and it could possibly go up in price. But then I thought it could also go down in price, and T-shares are programmed to pump. So I'm going to make an executive decision to get T-shares now for whatever I can get, since this was free money anyway, and stake it for 15 years rather than, possibly, seeing the price do a 2x or whatever. So, yeah. But anyway, that was that. So, yeah, congratulations to BitGet for listing Hex. I hope you do well with it. Let's see. See if there's anything else on here that is newsworthy. It's bad enough. It's bad enough not having anybody else to celebrate Valentine's Day with, but then you see a picture of BitBoy dressed like Cupid, with one nipple showing, and that doesn't help. It doesn't it doesn't improve Valentine's Day at all. Oh boy, I'm not going to show you that picture. I'll spare you all that. So anyway, I'm not coming across anything here. Going once, going twice. All right. I'm going to stop wasting time trying to find something to talk about from that source. So anyway, I've been going for almost an hour and a half, so I think I am going to call it for tonight, because I did wake up so early, and I probably should try and get an early night tonight. I got a few things I want to take care of beforehand anyway. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for taking some time to hang out with me and, listen to the things that I have to share. And like I said, my goal is to do this every day. I have been doing that for almost 2 weeks now. And, once I make it a habit, it gets easier. Doing these streams are very important to me personally because, as I've said before, I want to do everything I can to contribute to this space. And I believe building up the community, helping to resolve drama rather than cause it, is part of the goal. So, I'm willing to invest as much time as necessary to help us all succeed. So with that, I want to thank everyone for being here. And for tomorrow, I don't have any appointments in the morning, but since I'm already doing this evening, I'll probably go work on the property tomorrow, come home and stream in the evening. And then next week, I'll get back into the swing of doing this in the morning. I prefer doing it in the morning because then that way I have all day to be online if there's that much interest and that much involvement. That's my goal. be on 6 hours, 8 hours a day if need be, if it's contributing to the space. So thank you for your contribution. It means a lot to me. So have a good night, everybody. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace. See ya.